I'm super excited today. As part of our marketing school program, we have a monthly expert come in and speak with our marketing strategy school members and share insights and updates and things like that. So I'm excited today because we have Trent Chapman from Fix Your Funnel, who I've known for many, many years. But I feel like in recent years, they've just really dived into an amazing area of what you might call sales enablement, but it's so much more than that. And it's so much sexier than that. It's probably not the greatest term. Trent probably has better words to use for what this is all about. But the things that they have been exploring and researching and that they empower people to do in the sales process to make that process more effective is just absolutely amazing. So Trent, I'm going to turn the time over to you directly and let you take it away from here.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Tyler and I met, I think 2008. We got exposed to Infusionsoft at the time. Now Keep in 2008, actually 2007, but I think I met Tyler in 2008 at a conference. And so it's been 15 years now. And I didn't have gray hair back then. And I had only 2 children. Now I have 5. So a lot has changed in the last 15 years. But our love for Infusionsoft, now Keep, has not changed. We've been using it in our own business since 2007. Just kind of a backstory on how Fix Your Funnel came to be that will kind of help set the stage what we're going to talk about today. It actually was because of Tyler, in part, that Fix Your Funnel exists today, because Tyler was working with Keep back then and had a texting platform that he was using as like a side project. And I think they told you couldn't do that anymore, right?
Yeah, it's funny because they Keep, they've always had a very open culture, very entrepreneurial, encouraging employees to have those side businesses, because of course we have a side business that you can empathize with the
business owners.
And so I was doing that. And I created this little, integration between Keep and a texting platform. I thought it was awesome. And eventually that, grew to the point where they were concerned. They're like, hey, it's seriously engaging. People are calling you to support. They're asking about this text thing. We can't support it. They're confused. Just keep on this, or just lots of being confused about that one this or whatever. And
anyway, long story short, because of that, Ryan, my brother, and Tyler got together and kind of talked about it. And we'd already been looking into other ways of communicating. Because when we were using Infusionsoft back in the day, it was initially for our own real estate education business. We did about 250 seminars a year across the United States, and 200 to 250, depending. Some we do two a day. But anyway, we did these all across the United States, and we had to have reminders going out to get people to show up to these events because they were free events. They weren't paid events. So we really had to focus on getting them to show up. And then we would sell them on our course and our coaching at the event. Anyway, we started adding texting into that in about 2011, about the time we were transitioning into a different business. And because of that, we started realizing there's a lot of power in texting with customers from a business. We were, I think, a little bit ahead of the game, though, in 2011, 2012. Some people thought getting a text from a business was a little too personal. But since then, it's been well adopted. So we're going to talk about that as part of the texting part. But I'm going to go into the more of the overall theme of today. And that is really helping you to craft a strategy for sales, for converting more of your leads to customers, more of your referrals even to customers. And how do you communicate in a way that's effective, using automation, but also without losing that human connection. One of our core philosophies when we formed Fix Your Funnel was we love automation. We hate how it makes it feel too cold. So how do we make it to where you have a personal touch while still leveraging the power of automation? Because without automation, our first business, we'd have had to have at least 7 more employees than we did. But because of Keep and some of the tools we use, we were able to do a lot more with a lot less people and make it profitable much faster so we could actually sustain and grow the business. So automation has been a great leverage and a great tool for us. But if you over automate, you've all experienced this. It feels cold. It feels like there's not a real person behind this. This totally said something different from what we talked about. And so automation can cause a negative reaction and a negative impact on your reputation with the prospect or customer. So we're going to talk about that as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Now, the reason why we titled this Mastering Modern Sales is because things have changed the way we communicate, not necessarily how people react. Humans have always reacted in a predictable way. If you understand psychological way that we react to things, then you can usually manipulate people to do things. Now, manipulation in my mind is not a good word to use for sales, but in sales, what I think of it as, we're helping a prospect recognize the value that our company brings to solve a problem or add value to their life. And if I know my product or service adds value to them and I don't do my best to try to convince them of that, I'm actually doing them a disservice. And so if you look at sales this way, and if you do really believe in your product or service, you know it does provide value, then it's not a negative thing to help use these tools to leverage, to impact the people, to make the right decision that will benefit them or the business. And so we're going to talk about how do you harness the power of phone, texting, and video for improving your lead conversion. And then Fix Your Funnel is our primary company. Yeti Connect is another company that we own. We're merging the two together, but they'll be separate brands just so there's no confusion there. Yeti Connect works with HubSpot and ActiveCampaign, whereas Fix Your Funnel is a tool exclusively designed to work with Infusionsoft and Keep. So just to clarify if there's any confusion. So we're going to talk about a few things in the agenda today, and that is how do we leverage people, process, and technology to create the right sales methodology. Because if you just have one of the three, you'll do okay. If you have two of the three, you'll do even better. But if you have all three dialed in, that's where you start to see the magic happen, and then sales happen predictably and almost on autopilot. And then we're talking about why do we use video and why text messaging. Those are mediums that are widely used and sometimes used inappropriately because they're not used effectively. We'll talk about some of the tactics behind how to use them in your strategy so that they don't seem like they're coming out of nowhere and they seem congruent with what you're doing. The other thing we're going to talk about is video task, and that's a way that we can make sure we're doing the right message, the right time, the right medium. And we'll talk about that as well, because a lot of times sending the right message that's personal at the right time and using the right medium is all that it takes to get someone to move from a prospect to a buyer. And then we'll talk about what's called the pre-call text. We started this in about 2016. We started testing some stuff, and we're going to talk about what it was and why it's working so well. Even nowadays, it's actually better than it was before because of a lot of the things that have been put in place to try and block phone calls from disrupting people on mobile devices. And then we'll get into the topic of scheduled personalized messages, how those impact your sales process. And lastly, our appointment maximizer. This is how, if you do sell by appointment, whether it be in person or whether people are doing by a demo, by Zoom or whatever, we'll talk about how you can impact the value of those and the show up rate with texting. So these are all related to sales, but the good thing about this is you can also use this in your customer journey. Once you become a customer, a lot of these things we're talking about will impact your relationship and grow that relationship with your prospect and with the customer. So don't just exclude the customer journey in this. We are focused on the sales process, but post-sale, you can really wow customers by using these same things in the onboarding if you have a product or service that requires onboarding, or the fulfillment of your product or service and communication with that. So here's what we want to start with. What is your prospect experiencing when they come to you as a new lead? Now, this is something that you probably have thought about before, but maybe not as in depth as you should. And when you go more in depth on this, you're going to be able to craft the right message and think about what are they experiencing and how can I talk to them differently. So the very first thing is people who are coming to your business, who opted in on a Facebook ad or who Google search for your product or service, what are they hoping to do with you? What is the outcome they're hoping for? How are you going to help them? Now, the reason why you have to be so clear on this, because some businesses get confused on why people are coming to them because they don't understand what's the emotional reason that they're coming for my product or service. It's always either one or the other. It's either they're away from pain or towards pleasure, right? You've heard this in sales before. People are moving from where they are away from pain that they're experiencing. So if I got a big problem in my business and you have a solution for that, I'm attracted to that because I'm going to move away from pain. Or like, hey, I really like wake surfing. I like this boat right here. I want to buy this boat because I'm going to go towards pleasure because I got this boat. So there's away from pain and towards pleasure are usually the two motivating factors in why people will decide to come and work with your business. So what is the outcome that they hope for? Get very clear on that. The second thing is, how are they likely feeling at this stage? If I'm moving away from pain, I'm probably stressed out. I'm probably feeling like frustrated, feeling emotionally like I just want to get out of my business. It's too painful. It's too hard. And so I got to be aware of that feeling of where they're coming from so that I can talk to them in a way that touches on that pain and then moves them towards, hey, I can get you here away from that pain. So their feelings is important and what they're hoping for. So the hopes and feelings. The last thing we want to think about is how do they perceive our company or our brand and the value we bring based on our messaging. So your messaging plays a powerful part in all this. And these are all fundamental underlying things before we can even talk about the other stuff I talk about as far as leveraging people and technology to grow your business and sales. So when you think about this and you're thinking about the right message in the right time, the right medium, we got to think about how do we incorporate people into this. And that's what we call the human effort, right? And so human effort to communicate and create connection. And when I'm growing a business, I have to rely heavily on people. I don't think I've created a business yet that hasn't relied heavily on people to create human connection. I've grown 3 different businesses. Great. My payroll reminder is going off. So I should have turned this off beforehand. I've grown 3 different businesses to multiple 7-figure revenue per year. And I've got 2 right now that are over multiple 7-figure revenue businesses per year. And so doing this, though, is only possible with people, like the human effort involved to create the connection with prospects and the relationships so they come back, refer people, and leave us positive reviews. The other thing that we really focus on in business is the processes, the standard operating procedures about how we are handling communication. I have a roofing business, and that roofing business relies heavily on communication because if you've ever dealt with contractors, the number one complaint that people have about contractors is their communication. They don't show up on time, right? So we focus heavily on those 2 things because if we just do those 2 things right, we're like 90% above everybody else. And we're like shining as like the best example of how to communicate in business. And so how do we communicate with our prospect or customer? How do we communicate post-transaction? These are all things that we have written down, established, set up with automation, set up with triggers and reminders for our employees. So the people are implementing the process effectively. Now, the last part of that is how do we use technology to implement the process so the people aren't doing all the heavy lifting? They just step in when the human needs to be involved, but the technology is running the process and how we communicate most effectively. And then when a person replies or when it needs to be a human outreach, then a task shows up for them to do that as a human, as a person. Now, the reason why I talk about people, process, and technology, these are the 3 main levers in all business. And if you don't focus on leveraging all 3 of them effectively, you're usually missing out on growing your business. Now, we've laid the foundation now. Hopefully, we're setting the stage for the other things we're going to talk about as far as technology. But one more thing we're going to talk about is where does communication usually break down in business? Usually we find that a lot of the companies we work with are initially have written a very brief, quick message when they first started their business, when they're automating a text or an email or their marketing message. And the problem with that is if you don't spend enough time thinking about what are their hopes, what are their feelings, how do they perceive your brand, then your messaging is going to be off. So if you fail to understand how to communicate the right message with that prospect and you assume too much, like I do this all the time. I did this in the mortgage business and then I got out of the mortgage business and then I realized, you know what? There was so many times where I assumed my customers knew what I knew about mortgages that they felt totally in the dark about and they felt confused and frustrated because I didn't think about where are they at? What is their understanding of my business, my process, my operation? So as individuals, we have to think about people outside of my business don't know my business. So I need to communicate effectively what is going on. I don't assume that they know the process. We know our process, right? Internally, we know it A, B, C, D, and then we get paid. They'd have no idea what's going on. We can't assume any of that. So the messaging has to be thinking about all these things as we're creating the right message. And then the timing is also important. We've seen this as well. If in construction, if we are set to start installing at 7 a.m., but our guys show up at 10 a.m. and we don't call them, we have totally messed up. So we could send the right message, hey, we're on our way at 10 a.m. and they show up at 10:30, but when we told them we're going to be there at 7 or 8 and we don't show up on the time, then it's totally different versus if we say at 7 or at 6 a.m. or 6:45 a.m., hey, we're running a little bit late. We're going to be there about 15 minutes late. Hope you're okay with that. That's the right time because now I'm doing it before I'm late versus after I'm late by several hours. So the exact same message saying we're going to be late is received in a totally different way based on the timing. Same thing with sales. If I'm not saying the right message at the right time, people are going to perceive me to not be aware of what's going on. And they'll feel like, you know what, this person is totally out of it. They don't know what's going on with me. So think about the timing of our message as well. And last is the medium. If I only send an email to someone, they may not check their email every day or even every hour. But if I do a voicemail, a text message, and an email, they usually can't get upset with me if they missed all three of those. And so we want to think about how do we use multimedia in our communication with a prospect or even with customers. So we have the right message, the right time, the right medium. And these are all part of the strategy and planning phase of our process. So these don't yet rely too much on our people in the business. Now there's people writing the messaging, people thinking of the timing and what mediums to use. And that's usually what we do as owners or managers. We think about the message, the timing, and how we're going to send it. But the people running the business and doing the communication day to day, they don't usually think about these things. They just need to get in and do their job and make the phone call or respond to the messages. And so this is where it becomes into the process planning, is the messaging, the timing, and how we're going to send that message. Now, when we get these right, it's super powerful on the impact it has to our prospect, because they feel like we know them and we understand their pain and we're talking to them at the right level at the right time. Now, I'm going to shift gears pretty quick here, pretty hard. I would love to go into a deeper conversation. I could spend a whole hour on breaking apart messaging, timing, and mediums and create and craft a breakdown of how that would look in your business. And I'll give you an opportunity to do that at the end. If any of you guys want to have one-on-one time to go over that with your business, I'm willing to do that for Tyler's group without charging, just so you can have that opportunity to go over your business, your messaging, and see if we can help you there. Now, why would you want to use video and text message as a business? Because a lot of people 5 years ago were hesitant to do any of this. 10 years ago, it was like, you're crazy for texting people. But now it's becoming more widely accepted. We found that is 96% of people open text messages. Now, carriers are getting better about filtering unwanted messages, which I applaud because I don't spam people. Our business only texts people who have opted in appropriately. And there's a lot of businesses that just buy lists and text them. Good news is this, in the US, sorry for other countries if you're on here, in the US though, on September 1st, any text messages sent from a business to a regular person, a consumer, would be like a T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, any of their customers, those messages won't go through unless the company is registered with the campaign registry and their campaign of what type of messages they're sending has been approved for sending. And so what this is going to do, it's going to clean out all these negative spammers, because if a spammer is registered and their brand is registered, they have an EIN, and then they start spamming, now the carriers can shut them down and they can go after that person individually or their business as an entity. So what it's going to do is it's going to kind of cleanse the whole marketing world of spammers. So I applaud this. I'm all for it. Self-policing in the industry is great. That way the government doesn't have to step in. This is going to stay true. Most messages will get open and read because texting will be a protected medium, unlike email, which became very much managed and controlled by the spammers and marketers, right? Now, there are things that have reduced that, but there's still a lot of spam messages going through email. Now, the other thing with text messaging we found is up to 45% of people respond to messages from a business that you send out. Now, this has to be relevant. It has to be someone who opted in, is interested. You're going to get good response rates on text messaging. Now, if you compare this to email, across the board, marketing emails and transactional emails have about a 20% open rate and an even lower response rate. It's about 6%. So that's almost like, 30%, less than 30%. 28% of the opens get responded to. Whereas with email, or text messages is almost half will get responded to. So if you're trying to create engagement and conversations, texting is a much better medium versus email for business. Now, the other thing with business that you want to think about is, what is the objective of getting someone to respond to a text message? Do I just want them to respond to a text message? Well, my objective ultimately is get them to buy my product or service and do business with me. But the objective before that is I want them to get into a conversation. There's a recent study, I got to find the details. I don't have, otherwise I'd have in this presentation. But if people are responding to messages by text or email, they have like a 60 to 80% chance of converting to a paying customer. So the more we can get someone to engage, the more interest they're showing in our product or service, the more likely they're going to say yes to the buying decision when we make that offer for them to buy. So engagement by text messaging leads to conversations by phone. So if someone's responding to a text message and I can have a conversation by text, the chances of them answering the phone when I call or scheduling an appointment with me to have that conversation goes way up, because now they've showed intent and interest and they started responding to a text message conversation. This is why I want to leverage automation without losing that back and forth ability. And so back in 2014, when we started doing fix your funnel. What we did is we did had the ability to reply to text messages on your mobile phone or on the browser using your business line. And so that's really an important part of it. You can't just talk at people with texting and expect to get the same results. You have to have the ability for them to respond and then carry on a conversation as a human versus just letting automation take over that. Now, here's the reason why we started using video, and we launched this a couple of years ago in our business. And this has had a huge impact on customer engagement and also the feeling that they know, like, and trust us. Now, this is an example of a video. This is from a presentation that Todd did with a group called Hotsy. And basically, we have a video message that goes out on your business line to the prospect's phone. It looks like this, and then has a page that's hosted for them to see the full video and your message there. Now, the only thing that beats video, in my opinion, is face-to-face. Because with video, they can see your emotions, they can hear your tone. They're not going to get confused by your wording. As you know, with texting, you can say something and mean one thing, and someone can take it a totally different way because they don't understand your tone or your inflection of your voice. And so with video, you can convey that, and they can see your facial expressions. You become more of a person. You're more human. And the other thing that this does is it makes them feel like, oh, you know what? A person sent me this video. I should probably respond to them or check it out. It increases their response rate as well. Now, we do business with people we know, like, and trust. Video is a powerful way to increase that feeling of knowing. As well, if you're personable and you use their first name in the message, they know that you took the time out of your day to send them personalized video. Now, this is not just a templated video that goes out to everybody, right? This is a video I'm sending as a salesperson or someone working in the company saying, hey, Todd, this is Trent. I just want to follow up with you. Make sure you got that video I sent you that talks about X, Y, and Z. I'd love to send you another report I have that talks about this and shows you how to do this. If you're interested in this, let reply, yeah, go ahead and send it to my email and share that with me, and I'll send it to you. Now, by just creating a very personal email or video and sending that through text, that person feels like they know, like, and trust me more from that just one interaction, even if we hadn't yet talked by phone. Now, the other thing that we do by doing this is bring humanity to business. And my brother was a big proponent of this. He loved talking about how do we bring humanity to business. And he would always say that as you communicate with people and you think about them as like your brother, your sister, your friend, then you sort of communicate with them like a human. And when we do video, it allows us to think about the person I'm sending to. I see their name, I see their business, what they do, and I say, hey, XYZ company looks like a cool business. I just want to make sure you saw this. I sent to you this video yesterday. Did you get a chance to watch it? What did you think about the webinar? And so I can check in with them as a human. And now there's more humanity behind this business. So it might be my brand that I'm representing, but me as a person talking to them, saying my name, saying their name, that creates this feeling of connection that you don't get with just a cold text or cold email. And so there's a lot of power in using a personal, I only take like 20 to 30 seconds to create the video, but that effort and time is unique today in business. Most people feel like, what are you trying to get out of me? What are you trying to pull from me? And why are you sending me all these automated messages? So if we can bring humanity into business, people feel more connected to your brand and to your company. I don't know about you, but I hate chatting with bots. I hate feeling like I'm dealing with a cold, no-face brand. I want to feel like I know, like, and trust someone in the company. That's how I become a loyal customer. I go to an auto shop in town here, and the reason I go back is because they know who I am. They say my name. And so if you have that type of relationship where they recognize you and you feel connected, what are the chances you're going to go somewhere else? Same thing with your prospects and customers. In most companies, if you can create this human connection, your product or service they're only going to get it from you, and they're going to refer their friends to you because they have that relationship, that connection. So this is the power of using video in your business. One of the ways that we do this is we do it by having a campaign where, let's say, like, there's a new lead that comes in that clicks a link to watch a webinar. So now I know they clicked the link. I tracked out to the link click. It added a tag. And now I know they clicked the link to watch a video. Now I might say, okay, you know what? They've showed enough intent or interest that I might want to send them a personalized video. So I'll create a task that'll pop up as a to-do task inside my mobile app or on my desktop login. And I can record from the mobile app or from my computer a quick video. And I know that what the context is, if it's an appointment, if it's a new lead. So I'm creating this task with the context and the information of the person I'm connecting with. So I can jump in and say, hey, Todd, this is Trent. Just want to connect with you about this. Did you get this? I saw you requested information about growing your business and doubling your sales, I'm going to talk to you about how we can do that with X, Y, and Z. Now, when we do this, we think about the prospect. We even do this with the customer as a customer welcome. We think about how can we communicate the right message and the right time and the right medium. And this is obviously one of the most powerful mediums we can find. It does take the most effort out of all of the mediums we can use. I can do an automated text. I can do an automated email. I can even do an automated voicemail. But this takes the most time and effort to record a video than anything else we can do besides showing up face-to-face. Now, what we do with this to make it easy, even, I have it with merge fields. So the person's name is merged in. The message is pre-written. I record my video, and if I want to, I can slightly modify it and personalize it. If I want to add in something personal that I know about their business, I can type that in there, and then I hit send. And once that's done, they believe that everything was done by me, fully like took the time to write the whole message and think about them. And all I had to do is tap the thing, the to-do, record the video, let it process and hit send. Now, this gives us a lot of power in that our employees don't have to think about what is the right message to send with each video. I already think about that context of what they're sending and who they're talking to and what they're talking about. And so I can write that message and craft it just right. And then I can send that over to them with the video attached. So it's really as simple as tap, record, and send. It's going to be hosted on a page. And that way we can see when they view it, because when they click that, it'll show up as viewed, and we can track who's seeing our messages and who's not. Now, I want to shift gears to get to the second medium. We talked about texting. I want to talk about phone calls. We talked about texting and video. Now we talk about phone calls. And one of the ways we get phone calls answered is through texting. So you might think, well, we're going to talk about phone calls, we're talking about texting still. And that's right, because we found that by leveraging text messaging to connect with people gets more calls answered. About 2 years ago, I think it was iOS 15, Apple, maybe it was iOS 14, maybe it was even earlier than that. They started implementing a thing where you could have your phone go on do not disturb mode, and only contacts in your contact book on your phone would be able to call you during those times. And then they even made it to where you could say, I only want people on my favorites list can get through. Everyone else goes to voicemail. And so I actually use this. The only time that phone calls get through is if I have added them to my contacts because someone texted me, and then they put in the text message, hi, this is Trent with XYZ company. And I respond to that text. Then when they call me, it says maybe Trent, because that person texted me, I responded, I created engagement, showed intent. And then when they called me, Siri now thinks, oh, this might be someone you want to talk to because you've been texting with them. I'm going to pull their name from the text message body. This is Trent. Pull that in and put in maybe Trent. And now I feel like it's someone that I know that's calling me. So my chances of answering the call go up. So doing a pre-call text is important, but doing a pre-call text and getting them to answer, even if it's like a yes or no question, I don't care. Most time in sales, they say, don't use the yes, no question. Just ask open-ended questions. But when I'm doing a pre-call text, I don't care about the open-ended question. I want a response of any kind, because as soon as they respond, they've showed intent. And now when I call, their phone's going to suggest that this is someone that you might know. Now, the other thing that's important to note, there's another way of getting around this, and I'm going to wait for Ryan to show that one. That one's a little bit more sly. It's a little bit unknown by most people doing sales calls. And it is something that I hesitate to share with everybody because it's pretty powerful. But anyway, I'll get into that in a second. 58% of people surveyed prefer a text message over emailing or calling from a business. So consumers prefer nowadays texting over calling and email. And only 21% of people prefer a business call them. So you take the total of the two, that's about 69% or 79% of prospects prefer a phone call or a text. And this is they had to choose between three mediums. Okay, there's the phone call, text, and email. And so most people prefer a business communicate with them by text and email, or text and phone, sorry. Email, I guess, what is that? 21% was email as well. So if you think about that, most people are going to be okay with you texting them and you calling them, but you still want to incorporate email because email still has a place. But if I can text them and they get to a phone call after that conversation starts, that's going to be more powerful because they know who's calling them. So what we do is before we make a phone call in our dialer, we have a pre-call text button. And so next to each contact, I can have a pre-written message that's like selected at the top there, and it has the name of the person merged into the message. And I select which message I want to call, or I want to send for that call list. Let's say I'm calling existing customers. that I might have a message about a promotion to existing customers. So I select the existing customer pre-call text, and then next to like 10 or 15 contacts I'm going to call the next hour, I'll click on the pre-call text button. And that message is going to say, hello, first name, obviously I'm using the first name. This is Trent with XYZ Company. Just wanted to reach out to you about X, Y, and Z. I'll be calling you in a few minutes. I don't say I'm calling them right then because it's going to take a while for me to get through the 10 to 15. I might do 5 at a time, start to call the first 3 or 4, then do 5 more, whatever you want to do. But I like to give at least 5 to 10 minutes kind of a lag or a time before I call them. So they have time to get the message, see the message. And then if I call from the same number they just got a text from, a lot of people will answer that call because they recognize the number. The other thing we get out of that is if they respond and say, hey, you know, I'm in a meeting, call me at 4 p.m. Now, before I even have to call them, I see the pop-up of the reply to my pre-call text. Now I could just reply, that sounds good, I'll call you at 4 p.m. And now I add it to my calendar and I have a scheduled call. Whereas if I would just called that person and they didn't answer, I would have never scheduled that call. So incorporating the pre-call text with our calling has increased our call connection rate by about 40%. So simply by texting them and then calling them, if you're like 2 out of 10 call connection rate, you'll get up to like 3 out of 10 just by doing a pre-call text. So it's a pretty big bump for businesses if you can get 40% more of your outbound calls to answer. And if you're at like 4 out of 10 calls, you might get up to like 6 out of 10 calls to answer. So it just depends on where your leads are coming from, what type of leads they are. If they're warm leads, brand new leads coming from an ad that you're doing, or cold leads that you're calling, they're all going to have different call connection rates. Now, pre-call text opens the door to the phone. Like I said, we text them, then call them, and then wait for them to text back, or they'll answer. One of 4 things happens when we text them. Either they answer the phone because they recognize the number, they tell us to never call them again, they text us back, or they just screen the call, it goes to voicemail, they're like, no, I know who this is, send a voicemail, or they text us back and say, hey, I'm busy right now, call me later on. So any of those 4 things is fine. At least it's giving them a chance to respond in a different medium. Because I keep calling you, but you're not the type of person that checks your voicemail and you don't call people back. If I don't ever text you, you'll never see that I'm calling you about this thing that you inquired about. And so I'm missing a lot of opportunities if I'm only using phone calls instead of using phone, text, and email together. The last thing I want to talk about before we jump into like the summary is the scheduled text. Now, scheduled text is very impactful for when I have a conversation with somebody. So if I have a phone call with a prospect and they don't convert on that call, or even if they do, I'm going to take something very personal from our conversation and I'm going to put that into a scheduled message. Like this is the example right here. Thanks for chatting with me about the upcoming race. I'll be getting ready. So we talked about maybe I'm doing a race this weekend. And I want to make sure that's in my scheduled message, because I just talked to them today, but maybe later on this week, I want to send them a message that sounds like it came from me. Now, it may not be a bit from me right at that moment, but it was from me. I just scheduled to go out Friday morning instead of today. Now, this is the other thing about timing. We talked about message, time, and then medium. By sending you a text 4 days after we talked with something personal, it makes you feel like I'm a rock star at follow-up, because I actually remember something from our conversation and I'm jumping in and texting you a few days later to follow up. Now I can do this with multiple messages, and then as soon as you respond, I can just delete the other ones that are scheduled. But I can do this to follow up with prospects that get on a call with me, don't yet convert, but I still want to follow up with them a couple of times, but I don't want to use automation. And if you're a salesperson, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When automation steps on your toes, it's very frustrating. So a lot of times, once you've had a conversation with a prospect, you don't want automation to continue to say things that are automated and very generic. You want to be very impactful in your messaging by saying something personal or something that was important to them in your conversation when you had that one-on-one conversation. So doing the scheduled text message, this is a one-off scheduled text message, is very powerful. So we still love automation. We still love the automated campaigns and messages going out to generate responses from prospects. But once I have a conversation, I want to rely more on automation with personal human written messages. And that's what we're going to use the scheduled text for. And again, you can do this from desktop or from the mobile app on an Android or iPhone. And this has a lot of impact on how people perceive you when you're following up with them about something personal that you talked about in the call with them, about their kids, their family, their travels, whatever it may be. It has a big impact on them. Now, last thing here is the demos and appointments. I'm assuming a lot of you sell by demo and appointment. Most businesses that have a high value product or service have to use demos and appointments to close. It's almost a necessity because of the price point. It's hard to just do a general webinar or video and get people to spend thousands of dollars with you. And so that's why with sales demos and appointments, we focused on how do we increase the show up rate, because every person that shows up increases our chances of helping them to see that we're the best value and the best opportunity for them to get the product or service that they're seeking that will move them away from pain or towards pleasure. And so we do a pre-call text also in this situation when we're on the way, if it's like an in-person thing. So for our roofers, for example, if they have a scheduled inspection to inspect a roof, they're going to text when they're an hour out and saying, hey, I'll be there at 4 p.m. Look forward to seeing you. Same thing with an in-person demo. If I have a demo at 4 p.m., I want to have a text going out at least an hour before, and that could be automated or personal. I like to do automated and maybe a few minutes before I'll send a personal message. That way the automated one is, hey, I just remind you about our appointment in an hour. Let me know if anything's changed. And then right before I'll send one, just make sure they get on the demo or the Zoom link. Now, this other one is the video task 2 hours before. Now, why would I want to send a video 2 hours before an appointment? The thing that I like to do with these videos is to let people know about the things that they should be ready for and how I've prepared for our appointment. Most people are good people. And if they know that I prepared for an appointment with them, they're not going to bail on me. And so if I say, hey, I'm looking forward to our appointment in a couple hours. I was looking at your website, I looked at this, and this. Look forward to chatting with you about how we can help you to get X, Y, and Z from your business. So doing that an hour or maybe an hour and a half before is great, but do at least 30 minutes before the appointment. That way we have time to see it and watch it. And that'll help increase your show up rate as well. We also want to do an automated reminder. Once they book, send them a text message. Hey, thanks for booking. Look forward to seeing you this day at this time. Here's the link to show up, or I'll see you at your property at this time. And the last thing we want to do is a pre-appointment checklist of what to have ready the day before. So for example, I had a carpet cleaning business. I started with a friend. He did the business. I did the automation stuff for him. The day before he'd go to carpet cleaning appointments, he would send them a text message about what to do with their pets, what to do if they're not going to be home and they have a keypad, let him in, what to do about furniture since he can't move it off and on because that's to stay out for 5 hours to dry. So all these things that would normally become frustrating things for him to deal with the customer, we put that in the pre-appointment checklist in the video that he'd send out the day before. So the video was just a one-time video you recorded and send that out. And then he would send another video the day after the appointment to check in to make sure everything was good and offered a free comeback to come clean the carpets if any spots came back. So all these little things that we're doing are impacting that customer's perception of us and the thought we're putting into the experience for them. Because we're thinking about what are the problems they could run into before our appointment? How can we help them prepare for this? And that's what we're going to include in that pre-appointment checklist or video that goes out the day before. So I just want to summarize that. The people on our team are the most impactful part of the business. If I have the wrong people on the team, my technology and processes aren't going to be as effective. Like they're going to be still working and I'll get benefit from them, but the people is really where I see the most power in growing a business. I have to have the right people who are personable and care about the people that we're serving. So they're the ones sending the videos, they're making the phone calls, they're doing the personalized text for follow-up. And the process, this is where we get involved. We work with you on creating the right strategy. So your process is the right message, right time, right medium. That way you got that all dialed in. And we can also help you to automate that through technology using video task reminders, automated text messages, and having the right tools so that you're using business texting with business tools, but feel personal, feel like you're a human connecting with other humans. And again, for a HubSpot and it's not Actis campaign, it's Active campaign. We have YetiConnect.com, or if you have Keep or Infusionsoft, there's FixYourFunnel.com that can help you with those tools on the technology side. Lastly, if you just want to talk and see if there's a way we can help you, text the word demo to 760-621-8199, and we'll help you out there. And we can basically get some information from you, show you a little bit about how that works, and then we'll schedule a one-on-one appointment to talk to you more about that.